Hello, everyone, wherever you happen to be listening this week. Welcome to the Pulls Pod, episode 3 of the first season. Joining me today, we have Stephen Poxon, who is currently writing a book about Hartlepool United and stories thereupon over the years. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me today.
No, thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Lovely. And getting straight into the book is called Poolies at Heart. Would you describe it perhaps as a celebration of things over the years?
Yeah, that's the plan of the book. That's the idea. Celebrating Hartlepool United is the strap line. So as you say, it's called Poolies at Heart, celebrating Hartlepool United. And the idea is that in well, it's easy to be negative, it's easy to be critical, and have a moan about the club, and we all do that. I do that about results and people and so on. But um, there's also a great deal of good about Hartlepool United, the way the club keeps going, one of the Northeast's oldest clubs against all the odds. Some great stories, some great characters, great people, and occasionally a little bit of success here and there, relative success. So, although there are problems and there are challenges, everyone knows that there's also a lot to celebrate, and that's the point of the book, to get stories and memories and so on.
Lovely. And you recently shared on social media that you had an interview with Ronnie Moore, who's currently Chief Scout
Yeah,
at Pulse and was part of that Great Escape season in 2015, where he dressed up as a Rasta, I believe, a Carlisle game, which I went to and was a very entertaining game. Let's say. I can only
yeah.
really say that because we didn't lose the game. A very good three-goal comeback. Was that one of the stories he shared with you at the time?
Well, to be honest with you, Jack, Ronnie was fantastic. I mean, he's got his place in the history of Hartlepool United. That's never going to be erased, and rightly so. So managed to get hold of Ronnie, and he gave me a lovely interview. The point I'm making is I could not get a word in edgeways with Ronnie, and I mean that as a compliment. I love the guy. He's football mad. He's got an encyclopedic knowledge of football. He remembers things off the top of his head, clubs and names and players and results and so on. So the interview went, and I hardly had to say a word. Almost literally, he was saying, "Oh, this Hartlepool, that, and Hartlepool, this, and Hartlepool. Great club, great deal of affection for the club. He loves the place." Um, so I've got that all recorded. But in terms of the book, I haven't looked at the recording yet. I haven't edited that. And because he talks so enthusiastically and so positively about Hartlepool, it's like an onslaught to Ronnie Moore when he's talking to, and he was brilliant to interview. But I haven't looked at my notes yet. I'm a little bit frightened of doing so because there's a lot to wade through. But very grateful to Ronnie for his time.
And you've previously told me about a few more people who you've interviewed. It's up to you if you want to divulge, but there was a very good story about Danny Wilson that you told me about before we came onto air about a phone call that may or may not have happened in a shop.
Yeah,
Off you
that's
go.
right. Yeah, Danny Wilson, bless his heart, very kindly, very generously agreed to write the foreword for the book because, of course, like Ronnie Moore, Danny has his place in Hartlepool's history, remembered with great respect and affection by fans. Anyway, managed to get hold of Danny Wilson, got his phone number, and I sent him a text. I think I said, "Danny, any chance I could interview you for the foreword?" He rang me back, very kind of him to do so. He rang me back, and he obviously kind of, I didn't explain it very well. He thought that was the interview there and then, that actual phone call. The only problem being, I was expecting him to ring back and we could fix a time like we're chatting now, a date in the diary to make it all formal. However, I was in a shop, I was doing my shopping, and I had a couple of carrier bags of fruit and veg, I think. And Danny started, he returned the call and he started talking. And I thought, it suddenly dawned on me, hey, this is the actual interview. He's talking about his time. I'm not going to get this opportunity again. So in the shop doorway, with everyone coming and going, 2 bags of fruit and veg of all things. I had to quickly find a pen and a piece of paper and scribble down this 45-minute interview with Danny Wilson. It turned out to be a brilliant interview, and he too is very fond of Hartlepool United. Great memories. He loves the club. Um, so then I had to come home with a scrappy old piece of paper that I'd found in a supermarket and loads of scribbled notes and trying to make out what he was talking about. So I matched some of his comments with what I could find on Google to verify everything, and turned out to be a lovely forward. And again, very grateful to Danny Wilson too, but I just didn't realise he was planning to do the interview in a shop.
Fair play. I mean, he'll always hold a special place in Pool's fans' hearts for what he did when we got relegated. He came in, got us back up at the first attempt. That game against Accrington will live long in the memory as well. Away from home, kicked off, basically kick-started our season. That goal from Richie Humphreys with the outside of his boot, and then that memorable St. Effian's Day, if you like, against Darlington as well with his excellent goals. But all that came from the appointment at the start of the season, and he was excellent for us. And I'm sure that'll be a wonderful read as well.
Yeah.
Is there anyone other than the two we've mentioned, is there anyone particularly that stands out in terms of not just how forward they were with the information, but their enthusiasm for the club and simply how they wanted to talk, if you like, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of people. I mean, fans. I've had no end of responses from fans. I do want to acknowledge that the response has been very generous, very much appreciated. So I want to say that. Um, but one in answer to your question, one outstanding interview was Brian Honor. Um, he was fantastic. He invited me down to the club. We met in reception, gave me an interview, and pretty much said, Stephen, he said, take as long as you like. He said, ask me, and that, this and that. And he was talking about the Cyril Knowles days and all that kind of era, um, and so on and so forth. His experiences as a player, some dressing room stories of personalities. It's all in the book. What I liked about Brian was it didn't come across like he was a the legend he is. It just comes across as a man who played for Hartlepool, and I say that as a great compliment to him. His humility, his willingness to be one of the fans, if you like. He's a bit of a fan himself, and I thought, Brian, I don't think you realise just how highly we regard you, for what you gave to the club and all his appearances and what have you. So he was great fun. He's quite a witty man as well. He's quite funny to be with. But his insights into the club and one or two things behind the scenes which he's not given me permission to write about, which is a shame because they're good stories. Nothing slanderous, nothing malicious, not in the least
Class.
in fairness to Brian, but probably confidential conversations. So they won't be going in the book, but a lot from Brian Honor will be. And I'm very grateful to him as well.
Wonderful man. I met him once in the corner flag with
Uh-huh.
my dad. He did. It was a range. Well, I say a range. It was a limited run. I think from Cameron's Brewery. It was a limited run of ales where he signed the cover. It
Uh-huh.
was a special run of those, very similar to the promotion ones that we've had in the past. And he did seem like a very nice fella to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had that hat on, I think it's the pork pie hat, I think it was.
His little hat.
Um, and yeah, I mean, he did seem like a lovely gentleman,
He
someone
is.
who could
Yeah.
talk for, what's the phrase? Talk for England, talk for Wales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll be entertaining as well. You mentioned then it is important to give credit as well to those who haven't played for the club, who haven't managed the club, regular fans who have contributed to the book as well, and people in other professions. Is there anyone that stands out for you in that respect?
Well, as again, I stress, I've had a fantastic response, which is really very much appreciated because uh, it's mainly about fans. This book celebrating their club, our club, people who pay their money at the turnstiles, week in, week out, the lifeblood of Hartlepool United. Really, I warmly acknowledge that. I was invited up to the home of I can say this as an elderly fan, is a chap in his 80s called Ernie, lifelong fan since I maybe think the 40s or the 50s. And what Ernie hasn't seen about Hartlepool United, games he's been to, people he's met, situations he's experienced at the club, good and bad. And he's been with the club through thick and thin. Lovely gentleman as well. Invited me into his home with his wife, Pat. Kept me going with coffee. I turned up for a half-hour interview, and his enthusiasm for pools is so great. It was 2 hours plus. And I think Pat, his wife, was beginning to think I'd moved in. And he had a kitchen table full of old Hartlepool United programs, souvenirs, tickets. So much so, I'm so grateful to Ernie and Pat. In the course of writing this book, I've had to delve into a lot of old Hartlepool United programs. I had to be buying them off eBay and that, and just to check the facts and lineups and things like that. So I said to Ernie the other day, I said, when the book's published in March next year, or whenever it comes out next year, I said to Ernie, I'm going to give you all those programs, the ones I've researched from, the ones I've bought. So, because actually, there's some of the games he would have gone to years and years ago. So he's going to get that. That's his little fee from me, a bundle of old programs. So with a lot of gratitude to all the fans.
Absolutely. And it is, I mean, to be fair, I've lived through good and bads. I mean, I'm only 26. I can't comment on anything that's happened in the distant past. I can only go off stories that I've heard about the re-election days in the 1980s and 70s, things like that. But it, is it, I mean, it is wonderful, isn't it? Because there will have been stories in there that you have had no idea about with respect. Like you will have heard
Yeah,
things that even you didn't know existed from, from his time.
absolutely. Yeah, no, he's and people like Ernie and others, not quite as long in the tooth as Ernie, if I may put it that way. Um, their experiences have really enriched the book because they're, as you say, Jack, stuff I didn't know about, people I've never heard of, to be perfectly honest. But have enriched the book by giving it some history as well as recent times. So that is that taps into exactly what I wanted with the book, celebrating Hartlepool United, not just the last 20 years or whenever, but way before that, the struggles the club has overcome, the Brian Clough days and all that kind of era has come to life in the book because of their recollections. And that's why I'm so grateful because I wouldn't have been able to do that myself.
And we've touched on already that it is a celebration about the club, the fans, players, etc.
Mm.
Was that the original idea for the book? Because you are a published author, you've written books, many books before. Was there a specific focus on, well, there is something there untapped, that people have the stories about the club, that can talk about the club for as long as they may take. And was that where the idea came from, just seeing what was out there in terms of people who had the stories and bringing those stories to light?
Yeah, exactly. The origin of that was I wrote a book a couple of years ago about a man called Ernie Moss, who played for Chesterfield, record goal scorer in the history of Chesterfield Football Club. And what I picked up from writing that was the sheer enthusiasm of Chesterfield fans, who, if I may put it this way, with all respect, are a relatively little club. And not Premiership or anything. Great club, well-run club, no disrespect, but this sheer enthusiasm, lifelong fans, generations of fans for Chesterfield, who have not achieved huge amounts of silverware, let's be honest, but still keep going to the club, still keep supporting. It means everything to them. So I thought, hey, well, that's not a million miles away from Hartlepool United in ethos. Um, fans keep going, wanting the best for the team, part of the community, set up the town's club, as it used to say on the badge. So I transferred a lot of the enthusiasm from Chesterfield and Ernie Moss, that book, to Hartlepool, because those things are identical, and say, look, let's give an acknowledgement to people who've been supporting this club forever, and the way the club just keeps going. I mean, that's a minor miracle at times in itself because there's no money around, etc., etc. But the club's still there, and so I want to respect that and bring it out into the open. The stories behind that.
Absolutely. Talking about how the club has managed to keep going. We've spoken about the re-election days in the 1970s, the 1980s. We had that good period around the turn of the millennium, around the turn of the century. We've had the problems slightly more recently in around 2017, 2018. The friends as well that we had from other clubs who helped us survive in that period, the likes of Middlesbrough, the
Yeah,
likes of Rangers, the likes of Portsmouth even came up. And there was a togetherness about the football community at that point, and you would like to think it would go the same way as well if, say, if Middlesbrough, I can't see it happening, but if Middlesbrough were in our position, and I mean, we were in 19, I think it was 87, wasn't it,
yeah,
when they had to play at
when
the Vic?
yeah,
I assume you've had people speak about that as well.
yeah.
But yeah, it was wonderful to see, and as you say, it's a club that's endured, and hopefully better times are ahead.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And it needs to be acknowledged that that is a victory in itself because you haven't got a huge wage bill, you haven't got transfer kitty, you haven't got the money to spend, you haven't got the resources. It's difficult to attract certain players. That's no secret, and I'm not knocking the club like that. The point I'm making is with all those obstacles, um, to still be going and to still be, I mean, what are we now as we speak? Edging towards the playoffs. Am I allowed to say
I
that?
believe we're 2 points off the
Yeah,
playoffs. Yes, I
yeah.
think.
Which, celebrating Hartlepool United, well, there we are. If we can get to the playoffs with all that's gone on, context is king. And if context is everything, then that's okay. That's worth celebrating, acknowledging all the hard work behind the scenes and on the pitch as well. Um, that's okay. It's not we're not Real Madrid, but we're doing what we can.
Certainly. I mean, you speak about the current season. I believe we are 2 points off the playoffs. If I am wrong, I do apologise. But the
I
draw
think
against Barnet on Saturday, they
yeah,
were, before York put six past Maidenhead, they were the top scorers in the league at that point, and we managed to keep the clean sheet. Maybe it's a slight bit of luck about their disallowed goal from where I was sitting, but we've had enough go against us, I think, in the last few years, in the last, well,
yeah,
our entire existence. So decision for us every now and then is a good thing. You do live away, so therefore you haven't seen as much as you may like, especially
yeah,
working around the book and working away. Um, but when you have been and given, I assume you've seen highlights and bits like that from the club, is there optimism in terms of how we can get up the table?
yeah. Well, you're right. I live in St Albans in Hertfordshire, so that's 231 miles away.
Not
Um,
exactly a hop, skip, and a jump.
yeah, I know that journey very well. So I go to as many games around here as I can. London games, Southern games. I went to Brackley for the Cup replay. Uh,
A game that
Northampton,
we'd all rather forget.
yeah, Stevenage or that kind of area. I get to maybe 15 games a season, give or take 15, 16. So in answer to your question, is there optimism? I went to the Brackley Cup game when we was it 3-1 we lost,
It was.
and my heart was in my boots. I mean, I'm all for celebrating Hartlepool United, but there was not much to celebrate that night. That was dire, and that was I began to think then if this carries on, we really are in trouble. Losing to Brackley, and with respect to Brackley, it shouldn't have happened.
We conceded the
However,
same goal twice. Literally the same goal. I think it was a long throw, wasn't it? But it was the same
yeah,
throw in the box, literally the same
yeah,
defensive setup. It went to the back post and they put it in. It was like doing it
shocking.
once
Yeah,
is bad, but you can work
yeah.
on it. It's a one-off. Doing it twice is just unforgivable from that sort of
I
set
was
piece.
I was standing there thinking much the same thing. And this is one of the worst evenings of my life watching pools. However, things have changed. New managerial setup, which I don't want to speak too soon. I don't want to jump the gun, but it does seem to have stabilized greatly. We do seem to have a bit of steel there somewhere, a bit of formation. Um, bit more tactical pattern to it, so it seems. Um, and then I get onto my big hobby horse, as we were chatting earlier. Anyone who knows me will be fed up with me saying this. Um, my big thing at the moment, with all that progress, and it is progress to be where we are now compared to where we were that night, is Mancini. Monsieur Mancini, by far and away my favourite player. So I'm hugely biased. I make no apology for that. I think he's a lovely player. Um, I wish we could find his role in the team. I wish we could find a pattern of play that would work around him because he brings so much talent. Um, he's a shining light for me. Not everybody's cup of tea. I realise that he's a bit of a sort of a flair luxury player, but if we can, we that's nothing to do with me, is it? If we can work on the tactics, formation, to bring that kind of quality to the fore, I'd love to see that. But we are in a difficult league, and maybe Mancini is a luxury for the type of situation we're in. However, I do think whatever Lenny Lawrence is doing and his team of coaches and all those people, whatever the future holds, I don't know. I have to say it's progress of a sort, and it's good to see compared to the Brackley disaster.
To be fair, myself, Dan, and Paul last week we were speaking about the playoffs being a lottery. If we get into the playoffs, it's a brilliant thing, and at the end
Yeah,
of the day, we can beat anyone, etc. There's a distinct difference between our home and away form this season. At home, we are very difficult to beat. We don't concede many goals. If you discount that Rochdale debacle in September where we lost 3-0. Other than
oh,
that, we don't tend to concede that many goals at home. Whereas away from home, and we've beaten Solihull 4-3, we lost to York 5-3. It's a
yeah,
very different story. If you can replicate that home form to our away form, because if we finish sixth or seventh, we'll have two away games before we play in the playoff final, and that's assuming we get there at all. But if we replicate that home form away, get a bit more solid at the back. Starting with Southend away next Saturday, that's our next
yeah,
away game. Um, you never know; it's there for us, isn't it?
yeah. Well, it's interesting you should mention Southend because I'm going to that one. I'll have a December day out in Southend.
Very nice.
It's not too far from me, um, and that I think Southend are quite a decent model to emulate because Southend United have been through their own financial nightmares. Even I think the bailiffs were called in at one point, and
They were very close from what I was reading. Yes.
yeah, and I went last season. I went to Southend, and there was a threat shortly before the game that the game would be called off because they hadn't paid their water bill. You're not allowed to stage a game like that.
Hmm.
And that was while we were actually waiting to go in. So I don't know who paid that bill at the last minute. Point being, Southend with a decent manager, decent squad of players on the pitch, they continued to work hard and turn it round. And it was almost like someone had said to them, "Look, we can't influence things off the pitch, but we can play football on the pitch for that 90 minutes, and that's where it's going to show, and we'll get some decent." So all credit to Southend, and I'll be interested to see because there is a parallel there between them and their situation, their plight, and how they've pulled it round majorly, and what Pools are now trying to do as well. So yeah, looking forward to that one. I hope they've paid the water bill for Saturday, so I want to go and watch that.
Absolutely, and I'm assuming that might be where your love of Mancini came from because he was electric that day, from what I remember.
He was superb. He ran the show. So one of these days, if anybody's listening to this, well, loads of people listen to this. I'd
I
like to
hope so.
meet. Oh no, no, I'd like to meet Monsieur Mancini one day in person and tell him, I think he's already one of my football heroes. I love the guy. So yeah, Southend on a December Saturday. That should be lovely little day out.
And you mentioned you might be going to Gateshead as well, Boxing Day. Obviously, we don't have the best record at Gateshead. If you look at I think the polite word for it is calamity that happened at the back end of last season.
Yeah,
Is it? To be fair, I went. I think I said this last week, but I went to Gateshead a few seasons ago. Honestly, the stadium. I mean, if you can understand, I mean, to be fair, I know it was the legislation and the rules that you have to have a lease on a stadium to get into the EFL, and they were harshly done to last season. But
Yeah,
if it's that stadium, I don't think many football league teams will want to go to that stadium.
right.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've pledged off it because if I'm free, I might as well go, but it's not really
Yeah.
one that I want to go to. But is it is it realistic to suggest that we can get a victory up there?
Um, well, Gateshead, I don't know whether I'll be able to get there or not. I've got some logistics going on with family, Christmas, and some of your mum and all that. If I can get there, I will. Um, Gateshead seem to have an excellent model for how the club is run. I've got no insight into that. I'm not privy to anything to do with Gateshead, but again, they're not a big club. They're, as the ground proves, they've got that challenge. But having said all that, they do seem to recruit well. They do seem to be able to find a very good playing formation. And even with the loss of the manager, not long ago, they've recruited well again. They do seem a very well run club. I'm assuming that's at boardroom level, directors level, all that kind of thing. And I don't know what the future holds for them. I think it will be a good test for Hartlepool to go to Gateshead because they're one of the stronger teams. They're one of the better teams. They're well organised. They play good stuff. Um, if we can come away Boxing Day, isn't it, with a point, I think that will be a good yardstick for where pools are now, actually. If you take that back to the 7-1 nightmare, which we all want to forget.
Absolutely.
Um, so if we come away with a point, even a 0-0, there's that I think personally, it's all about opinions, that represents progress.
I don't think anyone would turn their nose up at a 0-0 at this point. I mean, from what I've mentioned before about our away form matching our home form, if we do get a 0-0 at Gateshead, that'll be
Yeah,
Barnet and Gateshead that we've shut out
yeah,
alongside many other teams. But in terms of top teams in this league, if we
right.
shut out Gateshead away from home, that is a hugely positive
I think so.
start for the rest of the year. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
build.
Oldham at home New Year's Day as well. They're in the playoffs. I think they're only a place below Gateshead.
Is
I
it
think.
New Year's Day? Is that Oldham?
Yes, Oldham at home, yes. So we've got Gateshead away and then Oldham at home
Right.
within literally within a week. So that is a good tester for where we might be, especially if we do get into the playoffs, because the likelihood is those two teams will be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll be a very good tester. Um,
Good.
just to finish off as well, moving back the book, you mentioned next year. It's looking likely, and I assume that's available from all good bookstores and all websites. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the deadline for me with Pitch Publishing, the publishers, is March. So now it's a question of editing, putting all the information in, all the interviews, pictures, etc. And God willing, Christmas 2025, well, September 2025, it'll hit the markets, the club shop. I'm hoping there's a big hint to the club shop there. If they want to stock it, go ahead. And celebrating Hartlepool United. We'll get it in all the magazines when Saturday comes and that sort of thing. Promote the club a little bit, and maybe I'll make a few quid in the process. But yeah, thanks for the interview. It's been lovely, privilege. Thank you.
You're quite welcome, Stephen, and hopefully the book does well. Hopefully, people go out and see what you've written. There are players that I haven't mentioned that you've told me about, and I'm sure it'll be an excellent read. Thank you very much, Stephen, and hopefully we do speak again at some point.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for everyone for listening. We'll be back next week, and hopefully you have a good week. Thank you.